B-Bad and Brandon.
What's going on, guys? Brandon here. We haven't recorded a podcast in a little bit, but this next episode is actually an interview I partook with Tim Piatowski. So Tim's obviously been on our podcast before, highlighting the safe use of PEDs, and I've participated multiple times in some of his research. Just trying to get, I guess, for him, collate data around PED users and some effects that it does have. So in this episode, we do talk a bit more about, I guess, the other side of PEDs, looking at your mental aspect and how they can possibly affect. And we deep dive into some pretty hectic topics. We do talk about my battles with mental health throughout the period and training, and look at really mindfulness approaches in strength training outside of the PED use. So it can be a bit heavy for some. So please, if you do suffer from some sort of mental health or are experiencing some issues at the moment, please either reach out, or there are many hotlines you can contact to get immediate help. So little warning there, and a big thanks to Tim for letting us share this audio with you guys. I think it does have some bits of gold in there that I think you guys can apply into your own life. So guys, have a good listen. We are back next week with our episodes. Obviously took a little bit of a break with all the competitions, but we are excited to be back and bring you some really quality content.
Awesome. Normal sort of demographic questions first.
Yep.
So what is your age currently?
29, bro.
Yeah, no.
Fucking oath. I'm just not acknowledging it.
Yeah. Sport at the moment? As an athlete?
Yeah, getting back into powerlifting myself, and then obviously training a variety of athletes now, actually. So powerlifters, rugby union players, and national level frisbee players, bro.
Yeah, right. So
interesting. Yeah, interesting. Really cool though. Anyway, sorry.
No. So let's work at the moment as well. How many years have you spent competing in total?
So 28 years now. 2014 was my first comp, and I'll compete again this year. So 8 years.
Nice. And that's it, both sub-elite and elite, obviously.
Yeah, so I've competed at multiple nationals, multiple state competitions. And hopefully in the next couple of years break through to that next level.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where you want it to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I do think I have a lot more in this sport to give, and really push the boundaries of not just myself, but what I think can be capable in the sport. And I'd like to really give it a red hot crack, in the next couple of years before, settle down, have kids and things like that. So not saying that I couldn't do it after, but obviously less distractions, and business is in a good spot right now. So I can afford to, I guess, not with so much withdraw, but take a step back and focus on a bit more of my own performance.
Okay. Currently, any PEDs, any performance?
Just testosterone and NT 1 mil per week, so 250 mgs. Every 7 days. Cool.
Awesome. All right. So given your wealth of knowledge, expertise, and all that sort of stuff, mainly coming from like the athlete side now, though, do you ever feel stressed about your performance, either in training or in competition? And can you tell me a bit about how that feels?
I think so. If we look back at my first competition, 2014, it was a push-pull, so bench and deadlift only. And I remember my coach at the time telling me it was a novice push-pull. And I was like, oh yeah, this will be a bit of fun. Like, just go in, have a crack, and we'll see what's there on the day. And I was a natural athlete at the time. And I think that week, it turned out that it was like a tri-nation push-pull. So they run South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia all run it at the same time. And then you get ranked across. So I found that out the week before, and like instantly my anxiety and stress just went through the roof. I was like, fuck, like I didn't even own a soft suit. Like, so the equipment you kind of compete in, and I was scrambling to find one, got one, and like had a shit comp. I went 2 from 6, got my opening bench, missed my next 2 on like calls, and then strength. And then the deadlift pulled my opener, and then I just like hurt my adductor or something on my next one. So pretty shit comp, really kind of was a bit defeated, deflated after that. The following year, I did my first 3 lift competition. So states in February of 2015, February or March, sorry. And I had no expectations going into this comp. Like I was just like, I'm going to do this comp to qualify for nationals. At the time, there was no qualifying total because it was still relatively new to sport. And I just went in and had fun. And it was actually like one of my best comps to date. So much fun, hit PRs on everything. I'd started taking just testosterone enthate. Again, I think 2, or may have just been like less, maybe 1 mil of testosterone, and just cruised on into comp like that. Felt really good and strong, and yeah, had a really good day on the platform, and I totaled like 520. So not like exceptional, but nothing terrible. And I was about 92 kilos body weight.
Okay.
That year was my biggest year of competitions. I did another 2. So I went to nationals, and I put, I took testosterone. Look, I couldn't honestly tell you what the other drug was. I think it could have been EQ. And I put on probably about 4 to 6 kilos of body weight. Still in the 100 kilo class, and I went from a 520 total in February to a 605 total, with sorry, the message just popped up. 605 comp total, which was huge. Obviously in a short space of time, probably about 4 to 6 months. And again, it like felt really good. I was like, this is awesome. Like I'm making hell progress. And then I kind of got a taste for it. I was like, fuck, okay, if I can put on 85 kilos on my total in 4 months, what could I do next one? So I ended up signing up for another comp in November. So I think it was February, June, July, and then November I competed again. And this was I'm not sure if you remember a bloke called Kevin Gaddy. He had actually met him, followed him a little bit on Facebook, and he was big into drugs at the time, not drugs, but like performance enhancing drugs at the time and nutrition. Met with him and actually worked with him. And he wrote like my first cycle from like, I guess what you'd call a drug coach and a nutrition perspective. Wrote me these protocols, and like, fuck, I blew up. Like I ran 2 mil of test, 2 mil of Deca. 4 weeks out, we dropped the Deca, added in Tren A.
Okay.
With some anadrol at the end.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, fuck. I weighed in. So I went from about 98 kilos. I weighed in at 105.3.
Yeah.
The next day, the next day I was 108.1 on comp day. So 24-hour weigh-in. I was a fucking bloated puffer fish face. Yeah. But with that, because I did get quite strong, it was also the first time I'd wrote my own program because my coach was a wanker. I just ended up just stopped doing it and just did my own thing. I exploded and totaled 665. Nice. So within 12 months, I went from a 520 total to a 665. Throughout that prep, I started to have, like, obviously with you adding drugs like Deca and Tren, and there was a little bit of like mental, the voice in my head saying I couldn't do it got louder.
Yeah.
We'll say that. And I wasn't prepared for it. I definitely wasn't ready for it. And I made shitty choices on Tren. And like, I honestly look back now, like, you're a fuckhead. Even though like we make Tren jokes all the time. Like it's a drug that I definitely can't handle. My life didn't pan out the way I wanted. I was really lazy with my work. I didn't, if client sessions clash with my own training, I'd be like, nah, we can't do it. and I felt the pressure of having to perform. That's probably the first time, but got through comp. Shit was a bit messy in the personal life, but like we got through it. The following year, I decided to do states again, and I suddenly started to feel pressure of needing to compete. I think from a work perspective, I was like, well, no one's going to take me seriously unless I'm competing at a high level. But the expectation, a lot of it came from myself going, well, he went from 520 total to 665. You're on track to go 700. And it like, I ran similar drugs just without the trend this time. And it was a terrible comp. Like, I think I actually went backwards, or relatively the same. I think I may have PR'd my squat slightly, but missed lifts on my bench and deadlift. Somehow managed to scrape through a invite to nationals. And I was like, all right, I've got 8 weeks. I'm at a relatively good strength level. I want to beat where I was previously. The last good prep I had, I ran trend. So let's fucking run trend for 6 weeks, not 4 weeks, and just blast it. Terrible idea. Just want to point that out there now. And all the pressure came back. I was like, this is nationals. Like, you need to perform. Again, I wasn't in a good spot with work. I really didn't like my job. I was coaching, but was in a very shitty environment. Wasn't really enjoying it. And the only thing I kind of attached myself to was powerlifting. Now, at the time, I had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression previous to all this, but didn't really pay it that much attention. Like, it still was a very taboo subject back then. And I didn't really warrant anything. I saw a psychologist once or twice, but I didn't really warrant anything or really take on what they said. Sorry. So yeah, Nationals 2016 was, again, just an abysmal fucking comp. Hurt my back real bad. Ended up finishing the comp, but with like a total that was 20 kilos less than my best. Took the rest of 2016 off, and I just like, I need to stop all drugs. I need to just get back to a base and start again. So I took a long break from steroids, long break from competing, even training to a degree, man. Like, there was a lot of rehab stuff I had to do for my back, but I even neglected that because I just didn't give a fuck. Like, I was done with competing. It had taken a lot from me. And as I said, like, my business was in a point where like, fuck, I need to pay attention to this. So did that. And then at the end of 2016, business really took off as I did start paying more attention. I, attracted some big name lifters. 2017 rolled around, and I got a taste for the bug again. I was like, fuck yeah, these guys are killing it all around me. My athletes are killing me. Like, let's go. So took a shit ton of drugs, paid less attention to my nutrition, less attention to what my actual training was. And I think I went in 2017 and I also ran trend for 8 weeks, which was fucking dumb. And I've never felt like anxiety and pressure. I've got sick 4 weeks out, lost a little bit of weight. Like, just a bit of food poisoning. In my mind, I was like, let's run more drugs that I know work for me in putting on weight. So I actually added an EQ on top of the trend, on top of the test. I'd stopped DECA 4 weeks out again. Like, it was, 8 weeks out. It was just too much. And a draw at the end. Like, I was just, and I didn't get any stronger. Like, I went 6'6", 7.5. So 2.5 on my best ever total. And I was just defeated. I was like, why the fuck am I not progressing? So I kind of shut off from powerlifting for a little bit, still worked in it, still trained in it, but didn't give a fuck. And then 2018, 2019, again, that pressure was there. Like, I went to Sydney to compete in 2019. I had a really shitty comp outside of my control due to some other factors. And I didn't handle the stress of that. So there was like a bit of an incident between the two guys that came down and handled me. And like, I wasn't like this is my comp. I'm feeling good. I was feeling okay. It's the first time I'd cut to the 100 kilo class and wasn't feeling the best. I was like, I'm good. Like, I got this. They had a bit of a argument, and I was like, fuck, this is shit. Like, what am I doing?
Right.
So like, just made my squats, ended up totaling like 640 again, 650. So again, nowhere near my best. I'm like, this is fucked. I'd gone down to that comp to squat 260. Like that was my goal, and it didn't happen. So I turned around a week and a bit later, competed in the 100 kilo class, 110 kilo class. I was 104, squatted 260. So I squatted 260, missed the rest of the comp. Like I got my openers and that was it. Like it was just, again, another comp totaled 650. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why am I not progressing? And like, that was pretty much the story of my life with all competitions for a little while. I did a couple of single list comp in the time, then obviously COVID hit, and my mental health and expectations of my own performance kind of really took a battering throughout COVID. And I came back and I was like, nah, like this isn't working. Like this just is not working. What's going on? I'll talk to a coach. So that's where I engaged Gwaine. And I knew I had problems with performing because my lifts in the gym were so much better. At the time, I had started seeing a psychologist for my anxiety and depression, and I had a bit more control over it. But when it came to performing, like it just was non-existent. Like I just couldn't put a meet together. So what I actually did was with Gwaine, we set up parameters around, we weren't going to use wraps. So I had to go into a comp in sleeves, full well knowing I would not even come close to my best squat, which actually was very beneficial because there was no expectations. I was like, okay, well, I've never squatted in sleeves. This will be interesting. I also knew going to bench that I won't be at my best ever squat, which means I'll have a little bit more energy and save a bit more in the tank for bench. My shoulders won't be as fried. And then because I'm obviously not squatting as heavy, my deadlift should feel a lot better. So it was really good. Like it was a good opportunity for me to go, okay, well, let's go into this comp and see where I'm at. Let's see how far I can push it. And that mentality really helped. But I also worked with a sports psychologist at that time. Now, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. What was his name? Sounds really bad. He helped me so much, I can't remember his name. But we worked specifically on like just executing the lifts, setting what we would call markers or flags within the lift for comp day, or replicated in training so that on comp day, it was exactly the same.
Okay.
And we worked on just, narrowing things down, bringing it like all these big things down to a really small thing. And just, if I do this, this will happen. And I can trust that. So we worked on that a lot, which was really fucking good. And I had a really good comp. I think I went 8 from 9. 8 from 8. I usually don't take 3 benches. I don't know why. Like I just always like, nah, fuck it. So went 8 from 8, got back up to like where I pretty much was, all those years ago. So it was a really good feeling at the end of 2020. And I set the idea of like, okay, well, I'm going to compete, go all in April of 2021. And unfortunately, my personal life turned to absolute shit. Like, I was in the midst of, my partner and I had started seeing a couples counselor, which was good. Like we loved each other. We just weren't communicating well. So we went there, and it actually brought up a lot of, childhood trauma that I had suppressed and didn't acknowledge. So going to this prep, I was kind of like, my personal life was going all over the shop. I was uncovering these things that I just wasn't necessarily aware of. And the emotional toll it took a fucking beating on me. Like, my depression spiraled out of control. I relied on these powerlifting sessions to get me through because it was like, I'm fucking killing it. Like I was doing really well in my training. The work I'd done with the previous sports cycle was really carrying over. The training foundation I'd built was really good with my last prep with Gwaine, and we added in wraps. I was squatting 20, 30 kilos heavier above PRs I'd never done. Like everything was going good, but I was fucked. Like emotionally drained, emotionally damaged. Stress was at an all-time high. My partner and I were fighting nonstop because I felt resentful to her for making me go through this stuff. I started self-harming. Like I would rock up to sessions and training so stressed from, giving myself a concussion the day before and then trying to hype myself up for a squat. The whole week was a write-off. I was a zombie in most training sessions. I was just fucked. And then I ended up, like, me and my partner were in a really shitty spot, but I was going through all this psychology stuff. I ended up stopped the couples counseling and just pursuing it by myself to uncover it all. I knew I needed to, it just wasn't happening in those couple sessions. My partner and I ended up splitting, and I went down to the comp anyway. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go compete. Best comp to date. Like, performance-wise, I took myself out. I competed down in Melbourne, spent 3 or 4 days prior to the comp just sitting by myself and resting, recuperating. Went 700, which was one of my goals I had for ages. Squatted 272.5, bench 152, and like pulled 275. So I was like, brilliant.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you post and stuff about it. I didn't realize there was so much going on in the background.
Yeah, and I think like at the time, only probably actually no one knew apart from my, my partner at the time, or my ex-partner at that time. And I just like, I was really ashamed of what I was feeling, the things that had happened to me in my childhood. I was just very, very ashamed of, like, that's what I was dealing with, and I didn't want people to know. So I just show up, and I was a zombie in like coaching sessions, man. Like, I'd be that drained, and all my psych sessions were on a Tuesday, which means I'd have an emotionally draining Tuesday and just purge these tears and emotions. Sometimes
Wednesday would be no good then.
Yeah, Wednesdays were squat day, and I was just like, you can't not do this. You need to do this, because if I felt like I was failing one thing and then going to this and failing, I was done. Like, that was it. And then post comp,
like a positive thing in your life.
Literally, it was the only positive thing I had going for me right now. And looking back now, that's not necessarily true, but at the time, that's what I attached myself to. After the comp, my partner and I had, like, obviously we split. She moved back home, and I had to move back into my parents for a little bit. Obviously, I wasn't in a great financial position because I just spent it all trying to distract myself. In that time, like, obviously I'd made a lot of breakthrough and progress with my psychologist, and I then tore my Achilles. Which, as an athlete in a sport, obviously that requires you to be on 2 feet. That was shit, but it was also, for me, the greatest break that I needed. It forced me to stop. I think, after talking for 20 minutes, I hadn't really stopped in 8 years competing. Like, there was that little break where I hurt my back, but I hadn't really stopped. So this forced me to stop, forced me off PEDs, and I had to find something else in my life to keep that competitive edge going. And I was making such good progress with my psychologist. And that's when I really started, because I was so stressed, again, with a different type of stress of, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't walk. My dad's driving me to work. How am I going to make this better? And I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. I read a book called The Resilience Project by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, which is so simple, but dramatically changed myself as a person. So I've always, like, had an interest in things like meditation, mindfulness, gratitude, but this really hit home. And I think it was because it was just such a simple approach to how this bloke, who's a teacher by trade, his family affected by mental health, wanted to make a change. And he used the principles of what he calls GEM, which is gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness, to teach at various levels, like from preschool kids right up to, he's worked with every NRL club, AFL club, Cricket Australia, like a lot of high level sports athletes. This book was just so powerful that it's a book now that I still refer, like, every second book I read or listen to is that book, purely because it grounds me back. It just reminds me every time, and it's brilliant. So, but that was my first introduction, to, like, really simple gratitude, mindfulness. I also read another book called Own Your Day by Aubrey Marcus. He's the owner and director of On It Academy. It's also a good time to point out that during last year, actually it was, there was still so many lockdowns that I had opportunity to read all these books and listen. But I threw myself into that, and like I took little bits away from each, and I delve into the Wim Hof breathing, which Aubrey Marcus kind of promotes in cold showers. And from the Resilience Project book, he created a 6-month journal. And I've never been a journal person. Like I've tried, I can never put more than like 3 or 4 days back to back. I'm currently up to day 300. Actually wrote 301 yesterday. And I haven't missed a day since I bought his journal.
Okay.
And it's little simple questions I answer in a book each day. And if I don't think I've missed one, so I can't say, but I mean, there's been times like on the weekend when we went for celebratory drinks after Pro Raw. We got home at like 10:30 p.m. and I was fucking blind. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I was blind, but I still did my journal because I feel so good doing it. Like, so that's one thing, like, we talk about stress management and stuff, and I know I've gone on a massive tangent, but introducing that journal was amazing for me.
Okay.
Immediately allowed me to take stock of what was in my life, and the empathy and mindfulness points that he makes in the book, I started applying in a very base level. And, I started really looking at what I had in my life more than what I didn't have. And suddenly I found things started improving in all aspects, especially my training and performance. So coming back from the Achilles injury, I was more invested in my rehab. I was grateful that I could be able to do the rehab. I got to a point where I squatted 110 bare knees, no belt for 8s and 10s, which is like, for myself, that was getting up close to what I was doing prior to tearing my Achilles. And especially as a natural athlete again, like I've only just gotten back on and things are moving really well. Like I meditate, the Wim Hof breathing style of meditation and breathing nearly every day. I take a cold shower every morning, and it's just like, my stress level now is like base. Like it stays consistent. It's not as like, there's still peaks and, when shit happens, but I've been able to stay consistent. My mental health is the best it's ever been. And I've been able to drop back my medication dosage for my anxiety and depression in that time as well. That was a lot for one question you asked. Sorry, bro.
No, thanks for sharing, dude. I appreciate it. That actually covers like a lot of points where like, that's why I didn't say anything, because you were just sort of
I was really, like, I looked at the time, then I was like, "Cunt, shut up, let him talk."
No, man, this is you talking. Like I'm trying to learn stuff here. I think I was very interested to see what strategies like worked and what didn't, and it sounds like you had to almost find your own, like.
Yeah, I think there's like, my psych and I, like when I first met her, we tried some meditation and breathing exercises, but I don't know if I was ready for it, or like, to me back then it seemed really tedious. And what she had kind of given me, what she wanted me to do was really tedious. Whereas I feel reading Wim Hof book that I'm just about to finish now, it's very like he's a dude that grew up in the Netherlands and just loved playing in Cold War. And he's just a bare-chested dude running up Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro, like in the freezing cold in his underwear. Like, I don't know, it just seemed, I could just relate to that more. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like this is fucking real manly or something. I don't know. But his breathing technique is quite, I don't want to butcher it, but you over oxygenate your body to a point where like it's 30 inhalations, so 30 inhalations, exhalations, and then you, on the final exhalation, you hold your breath for as long as you can without pushing it too far. Then you take a big breath in and hold that for 15 seconds, let it out, and then repeat 3 to 4 times. But the mental clarity I kind of found from that, and because you saturate your body with like heaps of oxygen, get rid of a lot of the CO2. They've now done medical studies and research studies on him doing it. Like it's shown to alkaline the body. It's shown to increase blood flow to the brain. So you're actually incorporating using both left and right side of your brain, your creative side, your emotional side with your thinking side. Like it gets you out of that state of heightened anxiety through constant exposure of little bouts of stress first thing in the morning. You're combining that with a cold shower, which nobody wants to take a cold shower first thing in the morning. And it's those little hits of stress exposure each day that I believe really allowed me to handle other stresses throughout the day a lot better. Because I wasn't I was constantly putting myself in a position where I had to challenge myself. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask on the, during training didn't sound like it was like stressful at all. It was just the comps.
Yeah, like training was
it was more of like a release, almost like a
training for me
strategy.
Yes, 100% training, like especially the height anxiety and depression. Like it was always something that I could rely on to be there. So I always knew like I was always there. So I just constantly threw myself into it. Like it was also a really good distraction from whatever I was feeling. But if I look back now, that distraction didn't allow me to execute my training. Sorry.
No, you're good.
That distraction of training didn't allow me to perform in training the best I could. So comp day was always a letdown.
Right.
Whereas now I'm like, training is good. Like I trained last night. I feel really good today. I get a lot more out of training because it's become a mindfulness practice for me. It's become something where I zero in on the exact intention of what I'm about to do, knowing that I need to, incorporate these muscles at this point in time. And it's something that's now bringing me back to just the present. I'm like, sick, I'm grounded, I'm good, let's go. And my performance is, as I said, like it's starting to come, there's obviously a few little injuries or nuances that come across when you tear something like your Achilles and develop a little bit of patellar tendinopathy, just obviously due to muscle atrophy in certain places. But that's all coming back now, and I'm again squatting pain-free, and it's fucking unreal. And training's fun. I'm not just closing myself off, have the headphones in, just like head banging bars anymore. It's like I'm talking to people, I'm still training at a high level, and I'm just enjoying it. Like I'm just really, really enjoying it. And that's probably been the best thing for me.
And it wasn't fun before, or it wasn't? Because
no, it was not fun. It was not fun. No, I hated training. Like I genuinely, like as much as it was a distraction, I felt like I had to do it. Yeah. Not that like now I'm like, I get to train. This is sick. Whereas like before it was, I have to train and this is shit. Like I would rock up to sessions and be like, I don't want to do this. Like I don't want to do this. And I would rely on caffeine, fucking motivational videos on YouTube, whatever it was, just to get me through. Because I had nothing to give to it. Like I was too busy hiding from all my other problems and hiding from the stress of like, fuck, I got a comp in 12 weeks. Like I need to perform. And I just didn't. Like I hated training.
It's interesting because you said, those comps that you did well at in 2014 and even 2015, you were like, this is fun. Like, it was just fun.
Because things were easy. I was progressing. I was progressing really quickly. Obviously, performance enhancing drugs had a big part to play in that as well. And if I knew what I knew now, I don't think I would have touched performance enhancing drugs from a strength conditioning point of view. Like if I had the knowledge I did now, I wouldn't have to rely on those things back then. But the results were coming so quickly. Like I was fucking loving it. I was like, I'm so strong. This is amazing. Like I'm just going to keep getting stronger, and not understanding that things aren't as linear as it always seems. And, you can't just keep adding in more drugs until you get to 1,000 kilo total. Like it doesn't work like that. So the first few comps were really fun. And then as soon as I started not to progress and things started to unravel with my mental health, it lost the fun, because those expectations came in. And I think I made a name for myself. Modestly, I made a name for myself within the industry, and I attracted some attention of big high level lifters. And with that came the own expectation I put on myself that, oh, well, you should be performing. You should be able to do go 700, 750 total, and you should be able to do this, but that's not necessarily how the body works, and it doesn't jump up that quickly. So I knew I put a lot more pressure and expectation myself by constantly thinking I needed to be more. And that didn't help the training at all either.
On the, it's interesting, on the drug side of things, how do you think that relationship between performance and image enhancing, like with PEDs, do you think that's common across like every strength athlete? They throw the drugs in and it increases the stress, or?
Well, I think from a physiological perspective, like a lot of these, like some of these drugs, sorry, not all of them, but some of these drugs there will be a physiological effect on the body in terms of stress. Like it's not something that's necessarily should be there. Otherwise our body would be doing it itself. And like that, I don't know if that's a true belief. Like it's just kind of how I look at it. But if we increase stress of the body, or even if we are able to increase output of the body, it means we're putting more stress in the body. If I'm able to then go from a 200 kilo squat for a double and then able to, squat 250 for a double, that's an extra 100 kilos of just on my body. And that stress you can't really measure that stress too much other than, total volume or something like that. But the effect it's having on the body, we don't really necessarily know. Yes, these drugs allow us to recover, but they also allow us to recover quicker so we can put more stress on the body to hopefully adapt. So from a physiological perspective, yes, you're constantly putting your body, these drugs they're helping, yes, but they're also helping us to accumulate more stress in a sense. From a psychological perspective, I know for myself, some people may have, they may not have had the upbringing I had or the trauma experiences or whatever it is, but so they may be able to handle these drugs better. I know for myself that I will never touch tren again. The psychological effects of that I was not ready for and was not capable of handling. My mind pretty much just went to mush. Like I was just an angry cunt. You couldn't have told me anything different. Even if you were right, I was still right. Like it was just fucked. So I think these drugs play a massive role in the psychological aspect of a strength athlete. Again, I've met people, I know some people who are absolutely great on tren. Like I have athletes and I'm like, fuck, cunt, you're just normal. Like, how the fuck do you manage that? And, but they still have an internal dialogue that they just run through a filter like, well, no, that's not real. Or that's not logical. That's not that. That's just this talking. That's just the tren talking. And I think psychologically that stresses you out more because you're constantly fighting a noise or a chatter in your head that shouldn't be there.
It's like extra cognitive load all the time.
It is because you're constantly having to run things more through a filter. Like there's shit I say in a day now. Like, I probably shouldn't say that. I remember being on tren, man. Like someone cut me off in traffic, and like I'd be like, oh, whatever. Like I didn't die. This is great. On tren, man, I'll be out my window blasting that cunt, telling him to pull over. Like let's go fucking fight. Like this is bullshit. And you kind of catch yourself in those moments going, what the fuck am I doing? And like who I am now, I'd really, there's a part of me that's super curious to go, well, what would you be like on tren now? Like you're now very routine. You now have your good habits that set you up for long-term success. And
like would it be as bad?
Would I be as bad now on tren? Like if I'm, meditating every day, practicing my gratitude, and I have things in my life that I really want to be around. Like my partner and I, we got back together and we're in, like I'm about to propose to her, and yeah, bro, fuck, that's just like, but like the depths I've had to go to like hide it from her.
Yeah.
Fuck, bro. Anyways, and we got like my puppy, little choc lab now. And like there's things in my life that are so good. And I'm actually genuinely curious, like, well, now that I've dealt with a lot of the trauma too, like if I was to go back on these drugs, like what would happen? Would I be just as, I'm assuming the side effects would still be there, but would I be able to handle them better? Would I be able to, process and go in the moment, oh, that's not a rational thought. What the fuck? Like,
Interesting. We touched on like psychological strategies before. I think we did speak about it one time. I've spoken about self-compassion with you before. So the idea of, mindfulness, common humanity, and different order. Mindfulness, common humanity, and oh man, what's the other? There's a third one. What is it?
So is this the self-compassion model?
Yeah, the next one that I think I spoke to you about.
Let me have a look.
Sorry, I should know this. So self-kindness, common humanity, and
right. Yep.
mindfulness.
I remember. Yes, I remember now.
So we were going to do that intervention sort of thing. And anyway, what did you think about, or what do you think about self-compassion? Like, does it have room?
It fucking needs to have room. If there is no room for it, you end up like me, because I had zero self-compassion. I did not have self-compassion till I tore my Achilles.
Yeah.
Because everything I was going through, everything, my trauma, my psyche and I identify, like I was just so not compassionate to myself. After everything I'd been through, I still was like, it's all my fault. Like I kept treating myself like a piece of shit. That's what I believed I was. Like at the end of the day, I just thought I was a genuine shit cunt. It wasn't until I had a physical injury that I could see that fully handicaps me that did I learn self-compassion.
Okay.
It was and I look back at my Achilles now, and like even all the shit I'm still dealing with because of it, like it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I went from being able to run, jump, I was going back to play football, being able to work completely, to walking around on crutches, my dad having to drive me to work, mum having to do my groceries, couldn't do a thing for myself for a couple of weeks. Even showering was hard. Like and living at home with mum, like I had one of those showers that has like a bathtub into it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get my leg over it at the start.
Yeah.
I would just sit in the bath in the shower and just sit there with water coming over me going, what the fuck is my life? Like, but I had to learn self-compassion through, I think, what was the three things you just said?
Self-kindness. So kindness,
yeah,
common humanity, and mindfulness. So that idea of being kind to yourself, the idea that everybody sort of goes through these things or like has
so
challenges.
Like it's running through that model, like I had to start to be kind to myself and be like, hey, you can't do this, that's okay. It's like, at the end of the day, accidents happen. Common humanity, like that's actually a really good one, because throughout that time I was like, okay, it's similar, I guess I look at it the same way as empathy. It's like I had to understand that other people are going through stuff as well, and I had to find that there is common ground for a lot of people. And like I found myself having to help people in a different way is probably a really good way to put it. Like I couldn't physically be there, but I could listen. And I think that was a really big thing for me, is I learned to listen a lot more and really understand that other people are struggling too and have their own battles. And what was the last one again?
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Yeah. Mindfulness.
I
learned, I guess.
So you're really engaged in that one.
Yeah. So I really had to start to become present with myself firstly, and then was actually be able to be a bit more mindful of what was around me.
Do you reckon it's like pretty difficult, because obviously you see the value in it, I see the value in it. But do you think it's a bit difficult in such like a masculine sport?
Fucking oath, bro.
So you do see what I mean, to get across this really sort of touchy feely stuff that would probably help quite a bit, right? It would. Do you see that, or do you think there's a way to get it across to athletes?
I think there is. And I think it's just about constant exposure, more people speaking about it. I recently read Darius Boyd.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Darius Boyd is a former Australian Queensland Origin, Brisbane Broncos captain and fullback, like rugby league player. I don't know why I said it like that. I just remember this is an interview between you and me. I was like, this isn't a podcast, Brandon. And so I just read his book, and I've had it for 2 years. Never read it. If I read it 2 years ago when I hadn't dealt with everything, I think it would have spun me out of control, because he's got a very, very beautiful story. His book is so heavy in mental health, but it was unreal. Reading a book like that really allowed me to go like, fuck yeah, this guy is talking about it. And I've become a bit more open about it on my social media and things like that. And I think that's the way forward, and break the stigma. Like, I know I'm not the most manliest bloke, but I have the morals and moral compass of a good man, I like to think. And I think that's how we break it into the sport, and I think it's shifting slowly, like so slowly. And again, talking about, the comp on the weekend, bro, like there was that much fucking testosterone, even from the females at some point, like it's fucked. But I think a lot of people, I personally believe that some of the top level people would be practicing this sort of stuff, whether they're unaware of it or not, or they are, and they're just too afraid to like put it out there. Due to the stigma of it. I think that is probably more the reason. And I think hopefully we can change that moving forward, because it is so powerful. Like, it is so important. And I know the changes made in my life, and like even now with some of my clients, I'm like, cool, you're feeling a bit stressed, try this breathing exercise. Just try it. And like, I think, I'm met with skepticism all the time. I'm definitely met with skepticism, or I'll give them the Resilience Project book. I loved it so much, I bought like 20 copies and gave them out to certain people. Like, it was brilliant. And so like I tell them, like, try this gratitude journal, try this breathing technique. I like, and I'll be harsh on them, like, I don't give a fuck what you say next. Like, just try it. Because once you try it, like, I know you're going to feel good, or you'll at least feel different to what you are right now. And that's good. So I've had a lot of success with that, and like telling people, introduce this breathing technique, or I'll do it subtly in client sessions. Like, all right, well, the first thing we do is like some breathing bracing drills, and I'm just getting to breathe. And I think just like getting them to slow down and start to be mindful in their training, to start the session, I'll be like, okay, well, let's just breathe and start feeling that diaphragm expand, the ribs expand, the rib cage expand, that diaphragm to compress, and let's start to feel that. And then they have to go searching for it. So they're, without them knowing, they're practicing a form of mindfulness. And it's, they are unaware, but they're already on that path. And then they start to like, oh, this feels really good. Or, then they start to ask the questions, which is then I can like kind of push a little bit more, like, try this cold bath, try on a cold shower first thing in the morning, try this. Like, there's so many things that we can take advantage of without having to rely on, medication. Like, I'm at a point now where I'm very confident I could step away from mine. So, which is great.
Cool. Slightly, or if you got to go, you got to go.
No, I got to go at 11, but we're fine, bro.
Okay. Last sort of thing, and slightly different. And we've spoken about this before. What about the appearance side of things? So obviously powerlifting, it's not as much of a focus.
I think
do
it's
you ever get stressed about like?
Yeah, 100%. A lot more than I used to. A lot more. I think the whole perception of powerlifting is changing. It's just not the fat cunt sport anymore. I think like a lot of your lightweight. I really don't sugar. Like, I still got some overweight clients. I'm like, you're a fat cunt. But I think it's the way people are starting to perceive. Like, we've got a lot of lightweight female and men putting up some giant totals, and who look like bodybuilders. Like some of them, they're probably like, I'm not saying they look exactly like, but they're probably like 6 or 8 weeks away from dieting towards a bodybuilding show. Like it's just unreal.
Really?
So yeah, bro, fuck me. Like she's an animal.
I see you got Kane running as well.
Yes, he started running. He started doing a lot more cardio. He lost 10 kilos really good, which was awesome. And hopefully we continue on that. Like I got a few more projects I'm working on for a few of my other athletes, and just want to keep it. I just want to keep them moving. And I think that's the thing. Like it's that shift in perspective. It's not the fat cunt sport anymore. We're a lot more rigid with nutrition. So I think the appearance aspect's actually creeping more into it, but not in a negative way.
Okay.
I think it's more of a like, okay, well, I feel strong. I want to look strong now.
Okay.
And yeah, I reckon that could have some negative connotations come with it towards, later down the track. But most people are searching for a feeling than they are for a perception. Like, well, I want to feel strong initially. Then it kind of translates into, oh, well, I want to look strong now.
Okay.
And I think that comes as a byproduct of progressing through the sport, which they kind of discover for themselves.
Okay.
But I do think more ownership, more attention to how people look is coming into this sport.
Okay. How do you deal with the appearance side of things? Is it in the same way, like same strategies that you use for performance?
Yeah, not really. Like I think I just got to a point where I didn't give a fuck anymore.
Okay.
I couldn't really tell you. I'd actually have to really think about that, because I remember when I was younger, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I look great on trend. Look at these I look shredded, but also strong and all this stuff. And
yeah.
Then I kind of was like, I saw, Konstantin, I can't remember his name, the big deadlifter, KK from Russia. Cunt was jacked as fuck, relatively lean, but he wasn't a bodybuilder. He was jacked. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is great. Like, that's what I want to look like. And
okay.
He was pulling 410 beltless, bro, like at 120 kilos, like just ridiculous. But I don't know. I just kind of like this sometimes in the, I walk past the mirror without my shirt. I'm like, oh, fuck, cunt, you used to be bigger, or, oh, you're a piece of shit, like whatever. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like at the end of the day, like my missus likes the way I look. I like the way I look. I'm still strong. Like, the fuck do I care about? It could come back when I'm deep balls and prep with 2 mil of test in me, and I'm like, let's get bigger. But for the most part, I'm like, whatever.
Do you reckon that just comes with age? Or
I think so. I think it comes with the experience of knowing that, even in this sport, the leanest person necessarily isn't the strongest. Like,
okay.
We need a bit more fluid. We need a bit more fat around our joints to help protect as we put these loads on our back or in our hands. And yeah, I think it is a bit more of an experience thing. It's like, I just don't care. Like at the end of the day, it's like, if I look like me, great. So I'm stoked with that.
I think we spoke about this, or I've mentioned it before, the idea that sort of that stuff that you just said has like a protective element for strength athletes. Like instead of bodybuilders, this idea of performance and this idea of like, needing to hold a bit more fluid, needing to, have a bit more body fat to drive strength gains seems to keep people from, undertaking like poor nutrition strategies or
100%.
unhealthy weight cuts, things like that.
I just think it's like, it also comes down to, the definition of performance within the sport. Like for a bodybuilder, their performance is based off their appearance. And to do that, they need to be having less fat. They need to be more obsessed with getting as shredded as possible. And when we compare it to something like powerlifting, it's like the definition of performance is the strongest person. And we know that the strongest person won't be dick skin lean, but they'll be relatively lean with a good, healthy amount of body fat around those joints. So I think if people can understand
about dick skin lean.
Yeah, no, like, I haven't used that term. Like that's something that came with, like, it just makes me think of Ziz. Rest in peace, R.I.P. Pull some out for a fallen homie. But like, I think look at like I have a female rugby player right now. She's nowhere near like fucking, what's considered bodybuilding lean or even powerlifting lean. But again, she needs a certain level of protection for her her joints. She's jacked. She's fucking thick. Playing flanker or number 8 in rugby union, but like I wouldn't call her lean, but that's not her definition of performance. And I think it's that constant, like, and you also become the shape of your sport. You know, we see netball players who are usually quite thin, but they're more explosive. They constantly have a high output, and that's a female-dominated sport. Obviously, they're a little bit more leaner. But a sport like rugby league, and you do become the shape of your sport and your position. So we see front rowers having a lot more body weight on them, carrying a bit more muscle mass and a bit more fat. Outside backs probably a little bit leaner. So I think the environmental factors of the sport you play and the realms of performance it encompasses plays a massive role in perception of body as well. Not saying that rugby league players never feel body shame or anything like that. They probably just feel a little bit less.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that's everything I had to sort of ask. Do you reckon I left anything out, or is there anything you wanted to?
I think it's like what you're doing is quite important. Like you're trying to expose more athletes to mindfulness practices will be the best thing, I think, for them and their performance.
Cool. All right, I'll stop that there.
Yeah, easy.
Thank you.
No worries, bro.
Stop recording.